Welcome back to another episode of eXhuming the X-Files. My name is Matthew. He is Jeremy.
Hey everybody, how you doing?
We're still arguing about the last episode, who was right, the bad guys and good guys. But tonight we're going to take a brief sabbatical from this long-standing debate, and we are going to suffer through the stigmata together. And gosh, I don't even know how we even really set this up. I'm not gonna bury the lead here. I really hated this episode. Revelations, directed by David Nutter, written by Kim Newton. What are your thoughts? Do you have any recollection of watching this as a kid?
No, and I would have, because I really liked his name. Not Apocalypse Now. Full Metal Jacket.
Oh
with
yeah,
Lee Ermey, the
Harley
drill
Ermey,
sergeant.
yeah.
They made it. That movie is so popular in the military. Like, that's one of the few movies they'll let you watch, like, in basic training. And so
No.
it opens with, of course, the episode is named Revelations. And you see the scene of a lit cross, and then you hear this reverend giving a sermon, and it pulls out of his face is fucking the drill sergeant Lee Ermey. And he's actually giving a decent sermon.
Yeah.
But it's kind of hard to buy it, because you expect he's going to start walking out into, his parish and be like, "Stand up, you!" like, just... But he's talking to everybody, and he's like, I'll show you. He wants them all to see a miracle, and so he holds his fists up, and blood just starts pouring out from between his hands, and everybody out in the parish, everybody in the audience is just buying it, lock, stock, and barrel. Like, oh my God, we're witnessing a real miracle, except for one dude who looks like he has diplomatic immunity. And for those of you that don't understand that reference, is Lethal Weapon 2,
Yep.
The old guy, I have diplomatic immunity, like, he looks like that guy. And I just call him diplomatic immunity for the rest of the episode.
Fair.
So he leaves, he's back in his dressing room, or whatever reverends go to in order to change. He's staring at his mirror, and diplomatic immunity is sitting behind him in the corner. And he starts talking to him about the sermon, about, miracles and stuff like that. And he doesn't think it's weird at all, despite diplomatic immunity guy being super creepy while in that room.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden he's getting strangled. And as Lee Ermey is getting strangled up against his mirror, like, smoke just starts pouring out of the hands that are strangling him. And then we get the title screen.
Yeah. This opening prologue didn't hook me. It didn't. I think I was partly disappointed that Arlie Ermey, I was excited to see him, and then I'm like, he's out that fast. We're not going to see him the rest of the episode. I thought maybe he would end up being kind of like the antagonist of this episode, and he's just dispatched so quickly. I don't know what it was when I was watching this episode. I'm probably going to mention this multiple times throughout. I just could not get into this episode. And this opening prologue set the stage for me for that. I was just like, oh God. Like,
you know what? I'm just going to take a guess at the beginning. You can think about this as we go along. But knowing you as I do, I'm betting it's your hatred of children and your hatred of Bible thumping Jesus people.
It might be,
because this episode has it in spades.
Yeah, I mean, it might be. I feel like a lot of this stuff. Just going off on my soapbox here a little bit. I feel like, okay, I'm gonna get crazy personal here for all the listeners out there. I have experienced one thing in my life that I could not explain that had something to do with religion. And I've told this to Alyssa, and she explains to me, like, there's a logical reason why this happened to you, sort of thing. Now, way back in the day, I used to live in California growing up, and my best friend was a kid named Justin Garza, and his family were Jehovah's Witnesses. And I was not raised religious. Like, my mom, we did not go to church. She did not she believes in God, but she was not someone that was like God exists and pushing out that kind of stuff on me. It was just we were a non-religious household sort of thing. And the Jehovah's Witnesses would always get to go up to like Big Bear and have like these 3 week long like camps and stuff. And I would always tag along because I didn't give a shit about the religious stuff. I just wanted to run around with super soakers and squirting people and shit because that's the kind of stuff they would do. We'd have all this fun stuff going on. Have
Big
these
Bear is
cab.
also a big deal in California. I've
Oh
always
yeah.
heard great things about the
Oh,
place.
it's amazing. It's an amazing place. And so one night, right? So we're in this cabin. There's all these bunk beds and stuff like that. And I remember my friend Justin. He was very excited about the following night. He's like, there was this big building that we were never allowed to go into. He's like, we're going to finally get to go in there. And I was like, well, what's in this building? And he goes, what? You're just gonna have to see tomorrow. You're like the Holy Ghost is going to enter us tomorrow. And I'm like, the Holy Ghost? Like, I mean, how old was I? I was probably like 8 or 9 years old at this point. Like, I don't understand these concepts or anything like that. So the next night rolls around. We have a great fun during the day, camping out. We did some fishing. We're just running around in the forest. It was fun. Then we go into this building. There is probably at this camp, I would say, 300 to 500 kids. I mean, there was tons of kids at this camp. And then we go in this building and there's all these chairs, multiple rows of chairs that extend all the way across this building. And Justin's like, "Oh, we got to get in the front." So we went up and we sat down right in the front where I don't know what the Jehovah's Witness call like their ministers or whatever. But this dude gets up and again, we are all roughly the same age. I don't think there is any kid older than 10 years old in this whole thing. And he starts talking about God and Jesus and the Holy Ghost and all of this stuff. And I'm sitting here like I'm looking around and everybody's at rapt attention on this guy. And I'm just like, this is stupid. Like even as a kid, I'm like, this is fucking stupid. Like what is this? Like I like the whole time we were at this camp, nothing like this had ever occurred. It was just having fun and doing stuff. So then this guy goes, I want you all to hold hands with the person next to you, even if it's a stranger. Hold hands with that person. And so, of course, I was sitting next to Justin, so I held his hand. I think there was a girl next to me, and I held her hand. Never met her before. And then this guy, he closes his eyes, and he starts like the best I can describe it is like kind of like this weird sort of chant, not like the cool chant from the Burbs where Tom Hanks like I want to kill everyone, Satan is good, Satan is my pal, or Rick Duckerman, sorry, not that kind of cool chant, but he starts talking about the Holy Ghost, and he's like the Holy Ghost is going to enter every one of you tonight, and he's like I want all of you to stand up, keep holding hands. So we all stand up, and I am like he's like I'm looking at Justin. Justin's got his eyes closed, his head is down, and he's into it, right? And I'm looking at the girl next to me and she's got her eyes closed, her head down, and she's into it. I'm kind of like looking around behind me. Everybody is like into this, and I'm sitting there thinking, I can remember it clear as day. I'm like, what in the fuck is this? Like, this is weird. I wasn't thinking fuck in my brain, but I was like, what is going on? And this guy goes, I'm going to count to three, and the Holy Ghost is going to enter each and every one of you, and you're going to feel it. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, what the hell? What is happening, right? So the guy goes, one, two, three. I kid you not, as soon as he said three, I started crying uncontrollably. Uncontrollably. I fell to my knees. All these kids were falling to their knees. I was sobbing. I felt like warm inside my body. It was the weirdest fucking thing I have ever felt in my life because the second before he said three, I'm like, I'm completely incredulous as to what's going on. Like I'm not in any sort of frame of mind to like have an emotional response. I'm just confused. I have never felt anything like that. And then this guy is like, that is the Holy Ghost. Everyone was crying. every single person, every kid in that room, the adults that were standing up there around were crying. Everybody was crying. To this day, I cannot explain what happens. Now, I've talked to people and like, oh, it's like some weird suggestion, like a hypnosis sort of thing where, but I'm like, but I wasn't into it. Like my friend Justin was, and the girl next to me that I was holding hands was. They were totally into it. I watched them be into this thing, and I'm just confused. Don't know how it happened, but that's the weird religious thing that happened to me when I was like 8 or 9 years old. Can't explain it. I still think it's all bullshit, but I
It
can't
is.
explain
I
it.
mean, the guy that was leading that whole thing was probably some member of DARPA, and they needed to test some sonic weapon on a room full of kids, and they hit you with an electromagnetic or magnetic weapon that
Yeah,
rolls at the same, like they can measure brain waves when you're sleeping in different various states of sleep. Surely they can measure brain waves of what happens. What is your what vibrating level are you at when you're crying? And then they just hit everybody in that room with it.
maybe. I don't know, man.
And then
It was,
told you to
or
remember to take a brochure on the way out.
or it was the Holy Ghost. One or the
But
other.
was it enough to convert you, Matt?
Absolutely not. No.
See?
No, it was not. Just because, and that's the thing, just because I can't explain something, and I've always felt that way, just because I can't explain it does not mean I'm immediately going to buy into whatever random bullshit that somebody says. And I obviously we're getting off topic here, but
Well,
we don't
unless
want
it's
to.
Steve Bannon telling you some bullshit, then you're just gonna buy it. Wait, we're not supposed to do that. Sorry.
3 seasons down the fucking road, I'm going to be validated, and I'm going to expect a full apology written. I want a written apology on
You'll see it in the
parchment.
in the comments of that video for the world to see.
All right, so Arlie Ermey's dead.
All right. So they the FBI gets called for some reason. Um, Mulder and Scully are there. They see that rope burns are on the Reverend's neck, but there's a bunch of blood for some reason.
Hmm.
Um,
I
they
think
look at
I
his
think Scully asks why they're there, and Mulder says he's been tracking international stigmata killer or something. Like 11
well, like
people have died.
11 people have died.
Yeah, I love that in this show. Mulder is just he knows everything about everything. Like everything weird going on in the world, he's been tracking. So it's kind of like I don't know what Mulder does. Like he finishes up his day at the FBI, he clocks out, he goes home, he puts in his favorite porn VHS tape, jerks off, and then immediately starts investigating every freaking thing that's going
Yeah.
on in the world.
Well, he was probably on the internet, so he was just like you beat off, and then you go to a website that just is a bunch of weird shit, and then you just read for a while, and then you beat off again later, but then you go back to the weird side. Like it's a thing.
Okay.
Don't ask how I know. So, so they see these rope burns on this guy's neck, which is weird, but there's blood everywhere. And on a hunch, Mulder, there's blood on the floor. He looks at the guy's hands and doesn't see evidence of the stigmata. And so on a hunch, puts his fingers, bare fingers, not gloved fingers, bare fingers into this guy's blood in a crime scene and licks it.
I love Scully's reaction. What are you doing?
This nasty, nasty guy.
He should have just
But
went right down and licked it with his tongue. Like, why dip your fingers? Just get down there and go,
yeah,
Caro corn syrup and food coloring.
But he determines that it's fake blood. They open up, they see is that squibs under his shirt or
Yeah, he had like these pouches where I guess when he squeezed his palms, like the tubes would go up and it would kind of like squirt the blood out through the tubes.
sure. And they realize that he was just fake. And then we cut to an elementary school where Jonathan Taylor Gosling is a class bully. And
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. I thought they would immediately set this kid up as just some nice kid who's getting picked on or something, and then all this happens. No, he's the actual class asshole.
yeah. And because he's clowning in class, the teacher says, come up to the front of the room and draw on this chalkboard in order to show everybody your understanding of what's going on. So he goes up like a smartass, grabs this piece of chalk, starts bleeding from both of his hands. And then they call the FBI while he's still in the nurse's office about it.
Yeah.
Like that was there's been so many thin reasons to reach out to the FBI, but a kid in the nurse's office at the school.
It's stigmata, Jeremy. Who are you going to call if not the FBI? Stigmata is occurring on this kid's hands.
Did you think the school nurse, the most uncaring healthcare professional in the world, and you don't laugh, you know it's true.
It
You
is
think
true.
she's identifying the fucking stigmata and reaching out to the FBI? No.
I think they made some sort of comment about child abuse. They thought it was a potential child abuse situation going on, like at home with the mother. So it was like it wasn't like they were just out of the blue.
Well, Child Protective Services ain't calling the FBI either, but whatever. They show up. Scully starts talking to the kid, and the kid's like, I don't know how it happened, but you're going to make me blame it on my dad. And so they find out that their dad was somebody they remember from the news who had some sort of like standoff with the police or something after
Yeah,
kidnapping the kid. He had gone crazy, so they went to go visit him, and that did nothing to alleviate the image that he was just batshit fucking insane.
yeah. Oh, before you move on, there's one thing I wanted to. I actually wrote this down in my notes to actually a question about. Do you think kids these days? I mean, you have children who go to school. Is there any situation where they walk up to like an actual like chalkboard or a whiteboard and do long division in front of the class? Like, is that still a thing that kids do?
I know that they do long division because I had one of my kids actually walk me through long division again because I walked by and I'm like, I don't remember how to fucking do that at all.
Yeah.
They taught it to me, which was kind of interesting and whatnot. But putting the sort of pressure on a kid to make them go up in front of it, like mass punishment or embarrassment,
Yeah.
no, that shit ain't happening at all.
Yeah, because I was thinking it was like anybody like who grew up post 2000 probably in school might be looking at this scene and like, why is that kid going up in front of the class to do all this? Like, it might be alien to them. So it's kind of an interesting time capsule of how, a moment of how instruction occurred back in the day that doesn't actually happen anymore. I just found it kind of interesting.
But they try to shame that kid and he bleeds for it, which,
Hmm.
probably is what started us not doing that to kids anymore. Because
They were
one
all
kid
getting
in the late
stigmata.
90s, yeah, the one kid in the late 90s remembers that episode, just stabs his hands on the way to the chalkboard. Like, no,
Oh, God.
so Mulder wants to dismiss this case right at the beginning, as soon
Yeah.
as they talk about the dad and whatnot. But Scully, for some reason, wants to get involved, wants to talk to the crazy dad. So they do, and he comes across as a complete kook.
Yeah.
But he does say another one of these stupid things. It makes more sense in this episode than apology is policy. But he says, come full circle to find the truth. And for some reason, Scully gloms on to that one thing he says. Like,
Yep.
I'm sure this is another. Chris Carter wrote it down a couple seasons ago. He's like, I got to work this into an episode somehow.
Yeah,
And so
Chris
here we are.
Carter's credited on this as part of the writing team. So
Oh,
there you go.
makes sense.
Well, the dad also does say that Kevin is the chosen one. He's there to fight
He
evil.
does. You remember what is the movie Frailty? That really
Oh,
great movie.
amazing movie.
It was the dad from that movie, only with less guidance from God. It's what it came across. Just
Yeah,
he needed to protect his son because he knew that his son was special for some reason. Needed to protect him for some future war against evil or something like that.
yeah,
But when they interview him, he doesn't do anything to come across, even as a religious zealot. He just comes across as a fucking really weird, crazy person.
yeah. And if anyone out there is listening has not seen the movie Frailty,
Oh God.
go watch it.
Tonight, please.
Matthew McConaughey, Bill Paxton. It's awesome. It's an awesome, awesome movie. Bill Paxton directed that, by the way.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know. I haven't seen it, so I need. Well, anyway.
Yeah, we're getting way off topic here. Like our discussions about religion and other stuff is probably way more interesting than anything in this episode.
Sure, sure. And also the movie Frailty, way better than everything in this episode.
Yep.
So cuts back to the kid, and I asked the question, why is this kid telling scary stories after dark to his classmates in a classroom? And then all of a sudden, a bald guy who buries babies under baseball diamonds comes in to look at the kid's hands.
Yeah. This tale is submitted for your approval to Midnight Society. That's actually Michael Berryman who shows up. Mulder actually has a funny line about it when they do the, I guess the, what do you call it? The drawing, the sketch artist of what this guy looked like, and he calls him Homer Simpson's evil twin. Michael Berryman, very famous horror film actor. He originally showed up in The Hills Have Eyes in the 1970s as Pluto. That's kind of where he got his fame. But he actually has I don't know what it's called. It's a medical condition where you have like no sweat glands and like no hair or anything like that. And that's what gives him his strange, weird look.
No
I've
sweat
met him.
glands makes your face look like that?
Something like that. Yeah, I've actually
Yeah.
met Michael Berryman. He's a very nice guy.
Well, cool.
Yeah, I could
Dude.
talk to him, unlike John Carpenter.
so, Baldy comes in and kidnaps. Kevin is the kid's name, and the mother is hysterically overprotective at this point. She's yelling at, where's my baby? It wasn't supposed to go down this way. You were supposed to protect him. And then they get like a composite. How did they get the drawing of Sloth? I'm sorry, Michael Berryman.
It's from all the kids that were there. Remember, the kids see him walk in, and all the kids were saying, "This is what he looked like." And so Mulder doesn't believe it because he's like, you can't trust what these little kids are describing this person. I mean, look at this. He's like, this is just as bad as Titty Squatch. You can't trust any of this.
But
And
then
then
the
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 mom's like,
mom,
oh, yeah, that's Owen or whatever his name was.
who was hysterically overprotective in the previous scene, and just seems like she's doped to the gills on Thorazine in this scene. Like there's nothing going on there.
Yeah.
But it's like, oh, that's Owen. That's the guy we got to do our gardening while my husband was in the fucking nut house.
It's
And
always the
so
gardeners.
it cuts to Owen, and Owen's got the kid up in the attic, and it's like, come on, Owen, let me go home. And he's like, it's not safe. Not safe against what? I don't know, but it's not safe. Then all of a sudden he sees the cops pull up outside. He arms himself with a shotgun, and he's going to go confront FBI agents, but is disarmed as soon as he enters the door.
Well, that's what I
Or
wrote
they
down in
enter
my
the
note.
door.
What's hilarious about that? So the door opens. Mulder and Scully are like, put the gun down. And he puts the gun down, but he points the shotgun right at them as he sets it down. I was like, man, he could have just pulled the trigger and blown Mulder away right then.
He's a good Christian man, though. He doesn't want to. He
That's
doesn't
true.
actually want to hurt anybody that's not, a
He
demon.
could have
Something like that.
accidentally blown Mulder away then.
Sure, sure. Okay. So
I
they
hate
cuff
this episode.
him, and Scully goes upstairs. Is it Scully that goes into the attic?
Yeah.
And the Kevin is just gone. And so they bring. It was this great scene. I know you hate this episode, but he has him. They have him up in the attic. They're grilling Owen about what's going on. He's like, I'm a protector of this kid. Someday I just want to go to heaven. And then he takes a fucking header out of a two-story window with his hands cupped. Like he just hits the launch, boom.
Yeah. And
I thought he was trying to commit suicide, but he
That's
just
what I
gets
thought.
up.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And then, like, when they first show that shot of him on the ground, he's like twitching, like he's like, and then Mulder runs downstairs. There's that low angle shot up at Scully, and my note here is Scully has some big ass hair in this episode. Like her hair took up 3/4 of the frame. It was just so large. Her hair blocks out the sun. It was
You
so
were
big.
so bored at this
I
point that you
was,
start noticing Jeremy shit in
I
episodes. I'm
was
proud of you, man. So he breaks the handcuffs after just like landing on his face and runs off. Mulder is unable to catch him, though he seems to disappear as well, just like Kevin.
but this is God. It's like Mulder. There's a shot right where you see Michael Berryman in the foreground. You see Mulder, like Michael Berryman just goes off camera, and then immediately Mulder turns the corner of the house. It's broad daylight. They're like on a fucking farm or something. It's just barren land, and Mulder loses this guy. Like Mulder can't see where this guy is running. I was, oh
Well,
God, it
where did
was,
Kevin go, Matt?
look, voodoo.
No. Listen to me. Later in this episode, that kid creates a carbon copy of himself that the devil goes and chases, right?
Yes,
He has the ability to do shit like that. He
yes.
disappears from the. Well, let me strap on my Steve Bannon mask. He disappeared himself from the attic. He wasn't actually anywhere else. He was just in the attic. And then he was like standing outside invisible, and he saw his friend Owen take a fucking header out of his and he made him vanish so that he could get away too. Does it make sense?
Okay.
God. God. So
If you say so.
okay,
This,
yeah, you know
this
what?
explanation makes this episode even worse for me. Like I hate it even more. If that is the actual
Okay, if what you
explanation for this, I hate it
okay,
even more.
you remember? Okay, so that very same scene, you see Mulder. It pans up over the top of his shoulder, and the only thing that you see in front of him, other than 100 yards away, there's a wood line that Owen could not have run to in that amount of time. There's a truck. There's an old truck that's sitting on blocks right there. Owen was just ducked down behind the truck. Mulder was just really tired. So the kid goes home, and he goes home to an empty house, and he walks in, and he does this thing that my kids do that drive me crazy sometimes. When they need something from their mom and they don't approach her like a human, they call out to her like an object, like you need to solve my problem. They do this mom thing. He walks in the house and does this mom, and I got triggered for a moment. Then the doorbell rings. The kid goes and checks on it, and diplomatic immunity is there, and he melts the doorknob in half.
Yeah. Yeah.
He goes upstairs. He goes exactly to the room that Kevin decides to hide in. He doesn't get in the closet. He gets into a laundry hamper, and at that moment starts bleeding through his hands. And like, you know what? If you got God on your side and you got, wounds showing the pain that Christ went through on the cross, like throw the kid a bone, Jesus, and don't make him bleed through the fucking hamper he's hiding from the murderer in. Like, come on.
Throw him a bone, Jesus.
Throw him
Throw
a
him a
bone,
bone.
Jesus. So he finds the kid in the hamper because he's bleeding from his hands through the hamper. And then all of a sudden, Owen sticks him in the back with something. Like, just shows up at it. Well, okay, this also lends credence to what I was saying in the previous scene because Owen and Kevin are at the house at the same time, right?
Yes.
He stabs him in the back, and then diplomatic immunity burn chokes Owen to death. But then when they find him, he's like laying there dead, but he's smiling, which I thought was a weird scene.
You're talking about Michael Berryman.
Yeah, Michael Berry.
Yeah.
And then Scully goes into this whole thing where she's like viewing the body, and the body is not decomposed, and it's still technically just as warm as it was when he died. And other than the ligature marks on his neck, he doesn't look like he died. And so, like, in catechism, they taught us that there were certain religious people that this would happen to, saints and stuff that would die and not decompose. And I'm like, I went I went to catechism. I don't remember them talking about weird shit like this.
Maybe you just went to the wrong
I would
one.
I would have paid more attention. He's throwing me some mysteries of the unknown stuff. Sure.
I like the moment when Mulder walks in, whatever, and she's like, "Sniff him."
Oh yeah,
Like, sniff him. Doesn't he smell like flowers, roses? And Mulder, I do like how Mulder is a complete skeptic this entire episode. Like he's just like, "Are you kidding me?" Like
when
he smells like roses because Mulder
when
is sniffing, and we find out later on at the very end when Scully's in confessional, because Scully is very kind of disturbed in a way that Mulder is not seeing and clearly smelling all of the things that she is experiencing throughout this episode. And the priest is just kind of, well, maybe those signs weren't for him. Maybe they were just for you. But Mulder's like sniffing Michael Berryman. He's getting real close there, and he's just sniffing away. And he's like, I don't smell anything. And he's like, what is wrong with you? Like this guy is going to decompose. It's not like he's not going to
yeah,
decompose.
and then he starts hammering home. He starts doing the Scully fucking. I tolerate your little god shit from time to time, but when you get like this, like, it makes me just want to puke. And it's one of those episodes where she becomes Mulder's, like, I'm driven, I will jump to conclusions, I'm seeing what I want to see here, and
Yeah,
he's like, not. He's playing the skeptic. It was probably the worst example so far of seeing that in the episodes that we've seen.
yeah.
But it
I here's the thing. Like, I didn't buy anything that was going on in this whole thing. I didn't buy Scully's like. And when I talk about like some of the trivia, like this is the first episode that they really leaned heavily into the religiousness of Scully. Like in Beyond the Sea in season 1, we know that she's religious, but she's not like how she's portrayed here. And man, I don't feel like they earned it. Like I feel like we needed in previous episodes multiple kind of building up to this, but her just jumping head first into this kind of like, and I think she even mentions to Mulder at one point, right? She's like you get excited every light you see in the sky.
yeah,
Why can't you believe that a miracle might happen and stuff like that?
I
It didn't
wrote
feel
that exact line down.
okay. It just
How
didn't.
is it that
Yeah.
you are able to go out on a limb when you see a light in the sky, but you are unwilling to accept the possibility of a miracle, even when it's right in front of you? I thought that
Yeah.
was a great line.
It's a good line. Yeah, it's a good line. I just don't feel like the build up to this episode it was earned, I guess, from Scully's side of things. But that could maybe it's just my hatred of this episode is coloring my opinion of it. But I don't feel like we got enough. Hey, little hints here and there of Scully's religiousness in enough episodes up to this point for me to buy her jumping completely on board with all this weird shit going on.
Sure. It wasn't. I've seen episodes where Faith was called as not a non-faithful person myself. I've seen episodes of lots of shows where they did it in such a way that you could feel it, kind of. You can feel what the character is feeling, and maybe for just a brief moment you might have a base understanding of what it means to be faithful. But yeah, this episode was not it. So we get we find out that the dude that's been running around killing all 11 of these fake stigmata people was some rich dude from Georgia who went to Jerusalem and got Jerusalem syndrome. It's apparently a real thing where people go to Jerusalem and somehow get like this semi messiah complex, like they're meant for something greater.
Yeah.
We cut back to Kevin. Kevin's in a car with his mom, and he's still being a dick because she's blown her radiator, or her radiator, the car is overheated, and she's standing, like hovering over that radiator cap at that critical time where if you pop it, it might blast you with a bunch of hot steam and horribly scar you. And she's about to do it, and he hits the horn while he's in the car. Like if I did that with my parents, I would have been out like on the side of the road getting my ass whooped in front of traffic, you know?
I hate this kid. This kid is
Right.
awful in
He's
this
pretty bad.
episode.
But then all of a sudden you see a pair of pants walking up behind her, and he's like, "Hey, what's going on?" And she says it happens all the time. Now I don't know. This doesn't happen really in modern cars unless you really treat that radiator like shit. It used to happen in like 70s and 80s cars when you didn't have enough water in the radiator, or if you didn't have the appropriate mix of water to radiator fluid, it would constantly overheat. And turns around to him and says, "Oh yeah, this happens all the time." Like, well, lady, put some shit in your fucking radiator. Stop ignoring the problem and breaking down at the side of the road.
Well, she just doesn't have a man in her life anymore, Jeremy, to handle that stuff.
She had Owen. He was there.
You think Owen can do that?
Not anymore. He's dead, but maybe. So he, but it's the guy with diplomatic immunity. Just happens to show up at the right time. Um, he knocks the mom over, and the kid goes running off into the woods. So diplomatic immunity chases him out. And then suddenly you see this other kid, like run over and go, "Mommy, wake up!" I was like, okay, was there another kid in the car? Because you never see the kid's face.
Yeah.
And then it gets to Kevin sent some hologram running away from the car that diplomatic immunity chased. He wakes his mom up. His mom runs this dude over with 2 tons of Detroit steel. Doesn't even phase him. Like he has the power to choke a dude out with flaming kind of steam hands, but there's nothing that says he could take like that much metal to his grill, but he does. And then she just drives out of control and then gently like rams her car into a ditch. When I was in high school, I put a car in a ditch about 3 times as hard as she did. I did not die, but she died.
Yeah. I mean, it happens.
What? And
I hate this
they get
episode
there.
so much.
The kid tells Scully, like, "Hey, you know what? It was you that was supposed to protect me the whole time." And Scully like takes it to heart. Um,
Barf.
she wants to go see Scully or Kevin's dad again. They show him a picture of the kidnap or the guy that kidnapped the kid, trying to figure. Or oh yeah, I'm sorry. They lock him back up in the orphanage or wherever he was with all those kids telling the scary story. Only this time he has bars on the window. But he gets kidnapped because somebody melts and bends the bars. And I don't know if you remember that scene,
Yeah.
but they have like just 2 center bars kind of pulled apart.
Yeah.
That was not big enough for diplomatic immunity to fit himself through unless he eats like 7 livers every 40 years or something and he can stretch himself. So
I
Kevin
was
had
just
to
saying,
be
unless you're Tombs.
Tombs. So Kevin had to cooperate by crawling out through that tiny hole that it was created. But he gets kidnapped.
I did like what happened immediately before this scene because Scully is like getting this kid into the bath or whatever.
Oh
And
yeah.
she goes back and Mulder looks at her, he's like, "You never draw my bath."
Oh, it wasn't even smarmy like that. It was pouty, like you never
Yeah.
draw my
That actually gave me a laugh. That was probably one of the few moments of this episode that I actually had a good time. I laughed at that.
Oh no, yeah, that's right. He wasn't at the orphanage. That was bars on a window in a
Yeah.
bathroom at a hotel room
Yeah.
that the kid crawled out through butt ass naked.
Yeah.
Okay. So they go visit the crazy dad again because they don't know where he's kidnapped and run off to. The dude is just like the mom was a couple scenes ago, just dope to the gills on Thorazine. He's not even acting at this point anymore. He's just like, you gotta protect the baby, and that's it. But they go back to him and say, "What did you mean? Come full circle to find the truth." He's like, I don't know. And then they leave. And then Scully pulls a Mulder jumping to conclusions bit where she sees a recycling sign. That little recycle, reduce, reuse, recycle three arrows that are pointing at each other's asses. And she's like, oh my God, this guy from Georgia owns a recycle factory here in a completely different state that's not Georgia. That's where he is. And Mulder's like, no, he's at the airport. We have his car. We're going to find him. I'm just going to go over here. And she's like, Mulder, can you just trust me? He's like, sure, run along, do whatever weird faithy stuff. When you're wrong, I'll be here to laugh at you about it. He does not go with her. And that's what I wrote in that spot was that whenever he goes off, she'll try to keep him grounded, but she has his back. When she's going off, he's like, I've got better things to do than
Yeah.
follow you around in this nonsense.
Yeah. Do you feel
So
like
she,
that's a weird tonal whiplash with these characters? Or do you
yeah,
feel like Mulder should have her back in this and be like, all right, I'm just going to, you follow me on all these crazy ass, chases. I will follow you to wherever your weird religion stuff is
I
going to
feel
lead
like
you.
sometimes they do this dynamic really, really well, and sometimes it just changes, and they do the dynamic between the two of them very, very poorly.
Yeah.
And yes, do I feel whiplash from this episode? For sure. So, but Scully is right. She shows up to the recycle place. The dude is there talking to Kevin about, the end times and Armageddon and how he's like, you're the real deal. I understand that now. And when I kill you, it's going to prevent the apocalypse from happening or whatever. Scully pulls out his gun or her gun and does not shoot immediately and gives him enough time to start using the kid as a human shield. This is really, other than you had mentioned the joke previously, the only part that I kind of enjoyed about it because he kicks on the machinery and the
Mm.
machinery starts doing the thing that the Thresher did in Graveyard Shift.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait, are they about to have a graveyard shift scene? They're going to do it. And they did it. He grabs the kid and jumps into a paper thresher. Somehow the kid gets out. He never needed Scully or anybody other than an adult to protect him because he didn't like the guy, the owner dude, the devil, whatever the hell he was. He fell into Thresher and gets turned into bloody chunks. The kid actually survives by holding on to the edge of it, not falling in with him. And he didn't need. You could have put any adult in that kid's life in Scully's position, and that same thing would have happened.
Yeah. One might call it poor writing.
One might. So
We got
she
Scully in the
rescues the
confessional.
kid. They are doing this separating thing where Scully's loving up on the kid and says, maybe I will see you again sometime." And the kid cryptically says, "Oh, you will." Like, okay, so Scully is it? We learned something about her like in season one. Wasn't she dead in the future or some shit? And now
Well,
she's going to be a part of Armageddon too.
yeah, like we talked about the theory of can Scully ever actually die? Because in Clyde Bruckman's final repose, when she asks him, "Okay, tell me, how am I going to die?" and he's like, "You don't." And so, like, it's weird. Like, we'll have to do like an I2 chart where we start putting out like, here are all the different permutations and variations of Scully's timeline and all of the different things that happen to her throughout the course of this show. I think a lot of this stuff is just kind of, it's put there because it'll be like, oh, isn't that cool? Isn't that cool? But they're never actually going to follow up or follow through with a lot of it.
So Damon Lindelof took like a lot of inspiration from this type of writing. Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
for sure. It's just like, hey, this would be a cool thread to go down, but we're never gonna.
We're gonna leave it here and never talk about it
Yeah.
again.
Plus, the little kid's Steve Bannon, so you can't trust anything he says.
Well, you can. I can't, but you weren't listening long enough to Kevin to really get anything, apparently. So, uh, Scully ends up leaving Mulder to mop up the paperwork and the statements because she has to go do something. And she goes to confessional and says that it's been 8 years since her last confession, which, as a recovered Roman Catholic, that's a long time. Um, she doesn't want to confess, but she wants to ask the priest if miracles are real. And if so, why doesn't her partner, who is there seeing all of the same things that she does, why hasn't she seen it? And then the priest says that weird thing where it's like, you got to come full circle to find the truth, or to find the truth. And that's the answer that she got. That's what bolsters her faith in that moment. And then she has what this episode was all about, was somebody in the writer's room telling the audience that they're a bunch of godless people, because she turns towards the camera and says, stating that she's not sure, she believes that God is speaking, or she's worried that God is speaking and that nobody's listening. That's what I think this whole episode is about. Was some Bible thumper in the writer's room wanted to say that to America.
Yeah, yeah, I could see that. I feel like the whole confessional thing would have worked a lot, but I understand what it's like. Oh, it's been 8 years since my last confession, whatever. But wouldn't it have been kind of cool in at least some of these episodes in the previous two seasons, where you just get a little coda of Scully, having some sort of confessional moment, just to establish her sort of connection to religion a little bit more than this episode just hits you in the face with it. I'm like, where the fuck did this come from? Like, we know that Scully is religious. She has a religious sort of background, but you don't see it until this episode. And I did like the idea when she goes in confessional, she's like, I can't talk to my partner about this. She specifically says, normally I can talk to him about anything. I can't talk to him about this. And that would have been kind of cool if they had set that up over the previous 2.5 seasons, where maybe there was an episode where something wild and crazy happens. Maybe she encounters what she thinks might be an alien or something. She has that kind of crisis of faith moment. You see a little epilogue with her, and the priest spews out some, oh no, it's actually just God bullshit or something. That kind of brings her back to a more skeptical sort of frame of mind that would explain a little bit more why she continues to be so skeptical about so many things, when we as an audience are like, how? And even the writers point that out in episodes, like when Mulder's like, how can you keep questioning some of this stuff, like you've seen it? Religion is the perfect a mechanism for human beings to be completely go back to their completely stupid, ignorant ways, right? You just like, oh well, I guess I'll confess and I'll get this bullshit response. That's enough for me to go back to my warm, safe place, sort of thing. And I'm not saying like Scully is stupid or anything like that, or how they write her, but just pointing out that having that kind of a more tangible connection of religion in this Roman Catholicism throughout would have made this character's decisions in certain episodes make a lot more sense to me. And
I think
especially when she's like, I can't talk to my partner about this. Well, that explains it. That explains why she's got that tension back and forth and she doesn't feel like she can talk to Mulder about it.
Well, listening to you talk right now, I think I've just come up with a theory of why this was so jarring as it is because this is one of those episodes where, of the many that treat their audience like idiots, I would bet money that in the next 4 to 5 episodes, probably 4 episodes, because this was a weekly aired show, there's going to be a faith or religion heavy episode. And we as an audience, because we basically haven't been reminded since Beyond the Sea that she was religious basically at all, they needed to remind us that she is religious. And that's going to be, they just beat us about the head and neck with it in this episode, so that when it shows up in a couple more episodes, it's not as jarring.
Yeah, maybe.
They've reminded us of stuff that people were doing in previous episodes previously. I
Yeah.
feel that's coming.
Yeah, like when you get your X appearance or whatever, like, oh, remember X?
Yeah, yeah.
He's coming. There's going to be a bigger episode with him. Yeah, I can totally see that being something that happens. I fucking hated this episode. I just I thought this is clear for me. This is easily the worst so far. I thought season 3 has been just banger after banger for the most part. Even the ones I didn't think were amazing, I thought were still really enjoyable. I just hated watching this. I was checked out. I hated this kid. I hated this sort of weird religious sort of beat you over the head stuff with Scully. It made no sense to me. It came out of nowhere, really. Ah, I don't know. Your thoughts on this episode?
I I I didn't like it. Yeah, of the ones that we watched this go around, I didn't enjoy it. It was the shortest notes that I had, and yeah, I could. This is definitely the worst one of the season so far. I could agree with that
Okay.
easily.
Well, here's some fun facts about this episode. Revelations was written by Kim Newton and directed by David Nutter. This is actually his final episode of The X Files. So, David Nutter, if you're just joining Exhuming the X Files and listening along, I'm just going to give you a few uh, episodes that he directed over the years: Ice, Beyond the Sea, Tombs, Clyde Bruckman's Final Repose, Too Shy, and he directed Nisei, which we talked about a couple episodes ago. It's just a few of the episodes that he directed. And I mean, he put out bangers. Aside from this one, I mean, he put out a lot of bangers. And I think the script he was working with here was just fucking trash.
Just
But
needed to go out with a whimper, huh?
yeah, he said that he quit the show because he wanted to pursue different things and that he felt that the series was in excellent hands with directors Rob Bowman and Kim Manners. Um, the episode contains a role reversal with Dana Scully, the believer, and Fox Mulder, the skeptic, which David Duchovny called, quote, a refreshing change of pace, unquote. Nutter believed that by examining Faith, the show's creators were able to explore the nuances and seeming contradictions of Scully and her worldview. The episode was the first to discuss Scully's faith in depth. Series creator Chris Carter later emphasized that the theme of the episode was more on personal belief rather than organized religion, noting, quote, the episode deals with faith, not religion with a capital R or Catholicism with a capital C. The producers of the series were cautious about presenting an overtly religious episode of the series for fear of, quote, pissing certain people off, unquote. But according to Carter, the show, quote, handled it in such a way as to make it about miracle belief or lack of belief, unquote. And according to co-producer Paul Rabwin, the episode had been rewritten a number of times. Now, this is the big thing here, and I think this is probably why it comes across so poorly. So it was rewritten a number of times, even when it was already in production. They were just rewriting the script as they were filming it. The producers felt it was difficult to, quote, sell the concept of religious magic, unquote, for instance, bilocating. The episode went through a detailed editing process, including additional tweaks to the script. These changes required actor Kevin Zegers to fly back to Vancouver and film reshoots and additional scenes. The producers claimed to be in awe by the way of the episode turned out after all the additional work had been done. So even they thought that this episode was going to turn out to be total shit. Just based on how often they had to rewrite it and reshoot stuff. Several of the scenes were altered or cut during post-production, such as a scene with the priest. The producers were unhappy with the voice of the actor, so they recorded a voiceover and mixed it in during post-production. Poor guy. There's a lot of stories of actors who will. There's a great movie. Well, great for me, probably not for most people. There's a movie called Lust for a Vampire that came out in 1971. And if you're interested in learning the backstory of it, I have an episode of Forgotten Horrors here on Outpost Unknown. I did all about it. But there's an actor there. They cast him because he looked like Christopher Lee, because Christopher Lee was like, this script is bullshit. I'm not playing Dracula in it. So they got this guy who looked just like Dracula, or just like Christopher Lee, and he worked on the radio. He had this really great radio voice, and he was like a huge horror movie fan. Well, they dubbed his voice with somebody completely different and didn't tell him when he got to the premiere and watched the movie. And they actually, when they did a close-up of his eyes, they actually cut to extra footage they had of Christopher Lee's eyeballs and placed it. I would not want to be that actor watching the episode, realizing that's not my voice. They cut my voice. It's got to feel awful. And a scene with Kevin's father speaking in tongues, quoting the famous Klaatu Barada Nikto line from The Day the Earth Stood Still, was cut in the final edit of the episode. And that's it. That's it. I don't want to talk about this anymore. Hit that like and subscribe. Stay tuned next week. We're going to be talking. We're on episode 60 of this show, folks. We're going to
Wow.
be talking episode 12 of season 3, War of the Coprophages. Well, you're going to want to stick around for that one. I think we're going to have some good things to say about that. So hit that like and subscribe, and we'll see you next Friday. Adios.